Finally, you and I have some finalists for the next White Sox manager. It sets up for a possible bidding war with the Miami Marlins and a chance the whole process is botched. Let's discuss next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, CHSN's White Sox pre- and post-game show host Chuck Garfien tweeted out that the front office has narrowed their manager search down to 4 names. 2 of them are finalists for the Marlins job, and none of the 4 are Skip Schumacher. So let's discuss in the first segment how this could set up for a potential home run hire and possibly being botched. Then let's keep reviewing the 63 players who suited up for this 121-loss season. Let's talk about some of the young pitchers who provided some hope. And finally, let's discuss if $19.99 a month to stream White Sox games is a bit too high. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, well, there is finally a consensus Final Four for the Chicago White Sox manager job, according to Chuck Garfien, and also confirmed by his former White Sox Talk podcast co-host, Ryan McGuffey. 2 of the names set up to be huge gets. But if the Marlins outbid the Sox for one of the candidates and the other candidate decides to stay in his current role, it sets up for a huge botched process. And also, if the Marlins and the Sox zero in on the best candidate of the 2 huge gets, I would be prepared for them to lose the bidding competition because the Sox always lose a bidding war. And these 4 names set up for a boom or bust or a meh when it comes to the hiring. And however, Skip Schumacher not being a finalist does not mean the Sox completely botched the hiring process. And those are the things that I kind of want to go over in the first segment. So Chuck Garfien tweeted this out yesterday at Chuck Garfien. It's sounding like the White Sox manager job is coming down to these 4 names in no particular order: Grady Sizemore, Phil Nevin, Will Venable, and Craig Albernaz. So the boom is getting Will Venable to leave his heir apparent job that he has, because he's the heir apparent to replacing Bruce Bochy in Texas whenever Bochy decides to retire. That would be a huge boom for him to leave the Rangers and come to the White Sox. As everydayers have heard me, I didn't think it would be possible, as it didn't make sense for him to leave an organization where he is close to the front office head and Chris Young, their former teammates at Princeton, and also a front office executive who has an owner willing to spend money and is bold enough to pull off big trades to put the team over the top and win a World Series like they did in 2023. So why leave a harmonious situation for a dysfunctional 121-loss heap of a garbage organization? Now you could say maybe Corey Seager gets hurt a little bit too much. The team is, the Rangers are getting a little older in the tooth. But again, you have Chris Young, who's willing to make big trades and has an owner that's willing to authorize big signings in free agency. And again, you're very close to that head. Why leave? Unless Bruce Bochy is saying, you know what, I'm having too much fun. I'm going to manage until like 2030. Maybe then. And that could be, again, where the door opens. But still, you'd be leaving a very, very good organization in the Rangers for a dysfunctional pile of garbage that the White Sox have become. And yes, I know they're making updates to the front office, but still, on its face right now, as long as you still have owner Jerry Reinsdorf and shadow GM Tony La Russa, you are a garbage organization. And either way, if the Sox could pull this off, though, if they could get Venable, it is a huge hiring, considering he turned down overtures for the New York Mets and the Cleveland Guardians last year. And along with his impressive post-playing career resume, he's worked for Theo Epstein, and then 3 World Series winning managers in Joe Maddon, Alex Cora, and Bruce Bochy. And I cannot stress that enough, how impressive his background is, because who knows if he's going to be a good manager. I mean, obviously, we don't have anything to go off of because he's only done some spot managing when Cora went out, and I think he went 1-6 in Boston He's probably covered for, Bruce Bochy, who's, gotten ejected. So we don't know if he's going to be a great manager, but still the potential is there based on his background. It's a much better background than, say, Pedro Grifol. But however, this could come down to a bidding war with the other team looking for a manager, and that is the Miami Marlins. Because again, this market, it's the Sox and the Marlins. That's it. And the Miami Herald's Barry Jackson and Craig Mish have reported that Venable is a finalist for the Marlins job. And the New York Post baseball insider John Heyman reported that Venable interviewed yesterday, and Jackson and Mish followed up that he did impress the Marlins brass, and he should. I mean, again, if you have studied next to Theo Epstein, at least even for a year, and then studied at the hand of 3 World Series winning managers, one of which is going to be a Hall of Famer in Bruce Bochy, yeah, I'd want that guy on my leading my clubhouse too. And again, Princeton educated, guy is brilliant. Ain't a former big league player. Let's get him. I will gladly be loud wrong if the Sox are able to hire him. The other reported finalist for the Marlins job is Albernaz, who, as I discussed yesterday, has ties to the Miami Marlins front office, and he too is a Sox, obviously, finalist, and he would be a great hire for the Sox, again, with his background of working for the Guardians, the Giants, and the Rays. I mean, again, he would also be an amazing home run hire for the White Sox, even though he doesn't have any managing experience. Look at his background. He would fit perfectly for the White Sox. But if he's the guy GM Chris Getz wants, he better be willing to pony up some cash to beat the Marlins offer if they decide to go with him. And that's the thing that just makes me so concerned right now. The Sox and the Marlins are targeting the 2 guys, and say, and I think it's 1A, 1B, but say both are going for 1A, it's going to come down to money, in my opinion. Especially if it's Albernaz, because again, he's got ties to Kapler and Peter Bendix, the 2 people that are running the Marlins. And as I shared on yesterday's show, SoxMachine.com's Josh Nelson shared that the Sox are trying to get their guy at their price. And that is completely just false, arrogant, terrible thinking for the Sox to be doing in this search. That's how you're going to botch the search. But again, when it comes to a bidding war, the Sox never win bidding wars because they're never willing to outbid their competition. They're just not. Go back to the Manny Machado. Well, we offered him the most money. Well, the Padres offered him the most guaranteed money, okay? And you can spin it any way you want, but you got outbid for Manny Machado. Period. New paragraph. Now, the disaster sets up for the Sox to have the Marlins hire Albernaz, who, again, I'd power rank number 2, because Venable, I just think, has the more impressive background when you're looking at potential. And then Venable decides, I'm going to stay in Texas. Maybe he talks to Bochy, and Bochy says, I'm only sticking around for maybe 2 more years. Give me another year. And if we don't get the playoffs, we don't get things turned around, yeah, I'm done. If you're Venable, why leave then? Why would you go? So that leaves the 2 home run hires off the table. And then you're down to Nevin and Grady Sizemore. And when it comes to Nevin, no thank you. That would be bust. That would be completely botch this process, because it's too much of a Tony La Russa connection, too much bad in Anaheim. He's just not a guy that inspires that he's going to help lead a turnaround. He inspires status quo. He inspires that he's the cheap option. He inspires that, again, Tony is still in charge. And Tony, 4 years ago, the man came back to the organization. We've known nothing but bad since he's been around. And I don't care about the AL, the AL Central. They won that division in spite of him. Look at some of the decisions he made. He ruined the Yerminator for hitting a home run against the Twins, heaven forbid, when they were up. Okay? That's what I'm going to say. If anybody apologizes for Tony La Russa, number 1, you don't need to. The man doesn't care what people think about him. Number 2, he ruined the Sox, even though they won a title, because look at how they got taken to the woodshed because he got outmanaged by Dusty Baker in the playoffs. And ever since then, it's been nothing but bad. So you bring in Phil Nevin, you're bringing in more bad. And yes, you can cite he had a terrible situation with the Angels, given their awful ownership in front office. And he had to deal with injuries to Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, along with Ohtani's future just clouding things in L.A. But as the Locked On Angels guys told me, Nevin contributed to the problem with his flaws too. Plus, Skip Schumacher managed to navigate a dysfunctional franchise and get to the playoffs. and win NL Manager of the Year. However, him reportedly deciding to sit out this hiring cycle does not mean the Sox botched this hiring process. Was he at one time the reported Sox favorite to be their manager? Yeah. That was Bob Nightingale's reporting through once Pedro Grifol got fired. It was going to be Skip Schumacher. And then it was basically crickets. It sounds like, as Josh Nelson said, I don't even know if he interviewed. He got fast-tracked to the next round. But, it sounds like he is taking his name out of consideration. He's going to sit out this hiring cycle because, A, it's only the Sox. That's it. That's all he's got to choose from. And if the Sox are saying, you're going to manage for us at our price, I'd be like, no, I'm not. I already dealt with one dysfunctional franchise. I'm trying to get out of that place. Why would I want to come to this headache? And it's not botching because the Sox have found some ways to mitigate Schumacher likely saying he wasn't going to deal with the Sox as his only choice. They have gone and talked to people from the Rangers and the Guardians and the Dodgers. Those are 3 organizations, and the Tigers. Those are 4 organizations you should be tapping into. And I saw that, this being suggested that they possibly botched the hiring on the main site of a network I write for. Maybe, when I was reading it, I was like, do the Sox deserve grace in this case? Usually no, but in this case, they're on the doorstep of hiring Venable and Albernaz, who, while they don't have manager experience that Schumacher has, they do come with immense potential to be plus WAR managers. And, you can't account for Schumacher saying, you have to account for Schumacher saying, you know what, this is the only job I have. And while I am very close to Tony La Russa, I would rather have a market so I can drive up my price. I'm going to sit it out. I'll spend some time with my family. You can't blame him for that. You can't be like, oh, I can't believe the Sox couldn't get him to turn down that. He had one job, and while that did put the Sox in an advantageous position, it also put him at a disadvantage. That's not botching, especially when you could have Venable and you could have Albernaz. What's botching is if both say no, or Albernaz goes to the Marlins and Venable says no, or Venable goes to the Marlins and Albernaz says, I don't want anything to do with this. Then you have a botched system. But Skip Schumacher saying no, while I would have loved to have had him, is not botching the hiring. Hiring Nevin, though, is botching the hiring. Hiring Nevin over those 2 is definitely botching the hiring process. Hiring Sizemore, who's just meh. Like I said, he's the ultimate backup plan. And at this point, you should not be hiring your backup plan. I keep seeing the comments. Well, he's willing to do it, and he did an all right job. You don't want all right. I'm sorry. Yes, you're at 121 losses. I know this is rock bottom, but if you want to get back to being competitive by 2027, for example, you shouldn't be just settling for doing all right. Ricky's boys. We don't know if Grady Sizemore is going to be Ricky. Ricky Renteria at least had a body of work with one season with the Cubs. We don't know if Grady's going to be Ricky. So I'd rather go with a higher ceiling guy like Venable or Albernaz. Although if I had to go with Nevin or Grady, and death is not an option, I guess I'll take Grady just because it wouldn't be a Tony hire, and, it would feel like I do prefer, giving Sizemore a chance just because even though I did say most of these players aren't going to be around, at least some of the players you're moving forward with have a relationship with Sizemore, so I'd rather have that than Nevin. But still, I want Venable or I want Albernaz. And if you get those, you didn't botch the process. Well, the other reason why you want a wow hiring is to get some hope, especially as the Sox young starting pitching provides that. And let's discuss some of the pitchers of the 63 players who suited up this season that provided the hope of better days to come. Next on Locked On White Sox. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. And as I always tell anyone who asks me about FanDuel, the traditional spreads, over-unders, and money lines, they're fun to play. But FanDuel's futures, parlays, and props gives you the chance to win big, or at least double your money. Ties are not fun, but if the Bears and Cardinals finish the first quarter tied and you put, say, $10 on the plus 850 of that happening, you can win $85. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple and Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right. There's a reason that even if the Sox trade ace pitcher Garrett Crochet, that I do not want to see them sign a veteran starter. I get it. It's a risk. You also take the potential piece to move at the trade deadline if that veteran starter turns out to be good, like Eric Fetty. But I want a runway for the team's young pitching arms. I don't want time wasted like it was this season because Chris Flexen or Mike Clevenger or Brett Keller could possibly, if you squint really hard, they could produce enough to have some trade value. And since they didn't, time was wasted. We wasted a ton of time on those three bad veterans. Plus, there were 4 young arms who proved they have the ability to form a young, homegrown, and cheap rotation. And remember, the owner likes cheap rotations. He doesn't like to pay for pitching. That's another reason why, sadly, we're going to have to watch Garrett Crochet get traded this offseason because I doubt they're going to meet his contract extension demands. And then with some of the other young arms in the White Sox system, I'd rather see that 5th spot go to one of those prospects if Crochet is traded. Although, again, just dream of Crochet getting extended through the rest of the decade, anchoring a rotation, especially with Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith on the way. But I'd rather go with those prospects rather than go into the scrap heap because, again, that's where the Sox are going to be shopping in free agency and hoping that this veteran can turn into an Eric Fetty. Unless Brian Bannister does say, hey, I can develop that guy like I did Fetty, then fine. I always defer to Brian Bannister, the Sox pitching guru. But Jonathan Cannon, Davis Martin, Drew Thorpe, and Sean Burke all gave us hope that they can be darn good starting pitchers in the league. Now, Thorpe, and I would throw in Burke, have the stuff to be aces. Where Cannon, I see more being just a solid number 3 starter, and there's nothing wrong with that. You want to get back to being competitive, you got to have solid pitching too. You'd love to have 5 aces. Chances of that happening are unlikely, but you're going to have a very solid pitcher in Jonathan Cannon. And Martin, I can see being a very good number 4, number 5 starter, especially from the evidence that was displayed this season. Cannon was the only one to throw over 100 big league innings, but that was because he was given the longest runway, and he earned it. He turned in a respectable 4.49 ERA, although you'd like to see his FIP go down as he finished with a 4.62, and he did post a 1.1 FWAR. Had 91 Ks and 124 in the 3rd innings. Needs to get better at getting lefties out, though. And that was one of the reasons why, he came back up. He debuted, showed some promise, but they sent him back down in part to waste time with Mike Clevenger and Brad Keller. But the other thing was to work in AAA and getting lefties out. And for a while he did that, but he still has to get better at getting, left-handed hitters out because they hit 278 with an 807 OPS. Got to figure that out. Had a rough August, but for the most part, he was very solid. Pitched to that Oakland win where the Sox, go 6 strong innings to finally snap the Sox 21-game losing streak. And he was part of, I believe, the winner in their 12-game losing streak too to snap that. So pitches well enough to be a stopper. Posted a 3.77 ERA in September. And with his arsenal of pitches, again, just a solid number 3 starter, maybe a number 2 that is a ceiling, but definitely very comfortable saying that this guy is a good number 3 starter. And I could actually see him being the opening day starter if the Sox trade Crochet. Drew Thorpe, the main piece acquired in the Dylan Cease deal during spring training, finished with a 5.4 ERA in 9 starts, but his ERA was at 3.03 after his first 7. That elbow injury hampered him, obviously, over his final 2 starts. You could see something was wrong because he gave up 14 runs in 5 2/3 innings, and clearly then that turns out he's hurt. And he did need to have surgery to remove some bone spurs. He should be 100% healthy at the start of spring training. And if he is, there's no reason to think he can't pick up where he left off before the injury that led to him turning in 2 terrible starts. Because before then, he had 6 amazing starts to just 1 terrible one. I mean, he was just he was brilliant out there. He showed his changeup as one of the best in baseball. He just has to be able to locate that fastball on the corners to set it up. Because that's the only worry you got to have with Thorpe. His fastball doesn't have a lot of movement, and it doesn't have a ton of velocity. He's only going to be throwing at 90, 91, although maybe cleaning out those bone spurs can get him back up to his reported reaching 94 on the gun. But either way, with the ball not spinning a lot and moving on his fastball, he's got to be able to locate it, because if he can locate it and set it up, especially in the corners, that sets up for his deadly changeup. It's one of the best in baseball. I'm sorry, it is. And if he can do that, since he's not, a fireballer and his fastball is just so darn good, if he can do that, he can be an ace like Aaron Nola or how Mark Burley was. Remember, Mark Burley didn't throw hard. He just located the heck out of his pitches very well. Davis Martin returned from Tommy John surgery after missing all of 2023 to make 11 appearances with 10 of them starts. He had only 1 bad outing against the Cleveland Guardians on September 11th, where he gave up 5 earned runs in 3 innings. Otherwise, gave up 20 runs in the other 10 appearances. That's good. He added some pitches to his repertoire. He's definitely a credit to Brian Bannister of, let's create pitches that you can throw well and then throw them a lot. And that's what I liked about Davis Martin. Although I don't see him being an all-star, I see him rounding out the rotation, where if he has the ball as the number 4, number 5 starter, I feel very confident that he's going to keep the White Sox in the game. Has to work on his whip. 1.46 whip, but a lot of that is chalked up to his final outing where he issued 5 walks. But otherwise, I never got Chris Flexen vibes. And what I mean by Chris Flexen vibes, Chris Flexen was always going to put runners on base. He was always, and runners, not a runner, runners. And you had to pray like heck he was going to find a way to minimize the damage. You never really got that with Martin. Yeah, he was going to put some guys on, but it wasn't going to be like, oh my gosh, if he makes one mistake, this game is over. Because he was able to usually come through. His ZiPS projections for next season is a 4.51 ERA and a 4.4 FIP and a 1.3 F4. And if you get that out of your 4th or 5th starter, that's solid production. All right, Sean Burke dazzled in 4 late season appearances that included 3 starts, a 1.42 ERA with 22 Ks and 19 innings. Big righty, and watching him pitch just made me angry, not at him, but angry that once again we wasted time with Clevenger and Keller and Flexen. His numbers were obviously not great in Charlotte, so I get it, but that's like pitching at Coors Field in AAA. And in a lost year, you should have been rolling through these guys. And again, Sean Burke showed in 3 starts, he could be a darn good pitcher, top of the rotation type pitcher. And that's why I was just like, man, just angry, because his stuff is electric. Now he has to spend the offseason getting ready for a big league workload. And hopefully he's in the team's plans for the rotation too. Fingers crossed, because I could see them signing some veterans and being like, you know what, let's give Sean some more time at AAA. And obviously he's going to have to make the adjustment to once baseball comes for him, because now there's going to be some tape on him. Teams are, if he is slated to be in the rotation, teams are going to be ready. They're going to have a book on him. So he's got to make the adjustment to the adjustment. And then again, I'd rather see Kai Bush, Jairo Iriarte, Nick Nastrini, Mason Adams, and even Jared Schuster compete for the 5th starter spot if Crochet is traded. Bush made a couple of starts. Showed he has some good stuff. Just has to work on that command and those nerves. Same with Nastrini. Iriarte had some outings out of the pen in September, but was darn good in the minors as a starter. Adams was the only one in the bunch not to get a call-up, but he had a good year in the minors. But those are the guys that I want to see the Sox give runway to next season. Well, hopefully Chicago Sports Network will have ironed out all the issues they are having getting Bulls and Blackhawks games to local fans and even some of the out-of-market fans by the time the Sox season rolls out, so you and I can see these young pitchers throw. And one solution, though, to get CHN to the audience might be a bit too expensive that I want to discuss after the break on Locked On White Sox. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Indiana. And my buddy on the text chain who lives behind the Cheddar Curtain loves using Prize Picks to get his selections in. I love it because it's simple and fun to play. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5, and you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discount selects player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup, so you should be checking that out today. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Love the community we're growing on YouTube. Feel free to make sure to subscribe to the YouTube page at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so, and also subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. As we're available on all major podcast platforms. And make sure to tell your baseball fan friends, hey, check out Locked On White Sox. I've had non-White Sox fans subscribe to the show because they're saying, hey, I want to check out just how bad is it to be a White Sox fan. And like I said, it's pretty bad. But hopefully I'm entertaining you. Hopefully I'm informing you. Hopefully I'm challenging you. Those are my 3 goals every time I do Locked On White Sox. All right, so the CHSN launch has been nothing but short of a disaster, okay? That's my opinion. So don't at me, CHSN. The new RSN that is carrying Chicago Blackhawks and Bulls games along with next year's White Sox season failed to get on Comcast Xfinity, and no deal has been struck yet, and they've been just stuck in the mud. And I loved how they'll get a deal done before the first puck drops on this Blackhawks season. Didn't happen. Well, they'll get it before the first tip of the Bulls regular season. Didn't happen. It's just been one disaster after another, and it's a big deal because Comcast is the largest cable provider in the Chicagoland area. CHSN took too long to explain that they never even got a counter proposal from Comcast. They finally sent their president on a media tour a couple weeks too late there, buddy. And while they are willing to give a significant haircut to Comcast to be available on all the packages beyond the highest tiered, that is the stance it sounds like Comcast is taking. They also took way too long to get on Fubo, and they're still not on Hulu. And the only thing you can't blame them for is YouTube TV. So, Gen Zers that keep tweeting anytime this comes up and I see it, why aren't you on YouTube TV? YouTube TV does not want RSNs, okay? They've made it clear. They don't want RSNs. That is not CHSNs. That's not the Hawks. That's not the Bulls. That's not the White Sox fault. At them, okay? At YouTube, if you want, and keep doing it. And even then, they're not going to listen to you. And while they did strike deals with DirecTV before launching, not being on the 3 other major providers before launching is a huge failure. It is. I mean, I know deadline spur deals, but that's still just a big-time failure to not make sure that you're on Comcast, Fubo, and Hulu. You should have taken care of that before the puck dropped on the Blackhawks season. Going with the over-the-air option, though, was a neat idea, but they did not prep the consumer for it, and it sounds like the signal still has issues. No matter where you point the rabbit ears, Mark Lazarus, the Chicago Blackhawks athletic beat reporter, tweeted out his issues, showing how the signal just kept breaking up. So it's not a good look. And again, you're using technology that my father abandoned because he got tired of having to point the rabbit ears to get a White Sox game. I get there's 600,000 folks in Chicago that use rabbit ears, but that shouldn't be like, well, here's the solution. And CHSN also took too long to explain. The goal is to provide the games and the channel in any manner that the audience is consuming TVs these days. They were on 670 The Score, the president of CHSN, and he finally said, hey, we're over the air because 600,000 people in Chicago, for example, don't have cable. We want to provide it in the form that they want it. Fine, that's great. That should have been communicated on day one, and I didn't see it in any press release. That's what it should have been communicated. And the final botch was you're still developing a direct-to-consumer streaming option. And I get those take time, but you had 3 or 4 months. That should have been also something that you should have been working on, and it should have been available the moment the puck dropped on the Blackhawks season. Because now that you could have gotten some leverage over Comcast beyond saying, well, people can use rabbit ears. And it's reportedly getting close, though, to launch, and it's reportedly going to be priced interesting for 3 bad teams. This is what 670 The Score afternoon host Lawrence Holmes tweeted at Lawrence W. Holmes. Here's what I'm hearing on the CHSN app. It should be available by before Thanksgiving, hopefully sooner. $19.99 per month per team, $29.99 per month for all three, or $300 per year all in. Network still negotiating with Comcast, some movement there. Situation is unique because no other market will have three teams bundled like this. Still waiting on NBA approval. People who've seen the beta testing tell me it's going to look and feel different in a good way. That's the T. I'm still working sources. All right, so I'm going to ask this. Are you willing to pay $19.99 for a terrible White Sox team to stream their games if they can't get on Comcast still by that point? Or if you do have YouTube TV? I know I'm not, because it's overpriced for a bad team. And I get other teams have priced it at $19.99. The Milwaukee Bucks, mentioned the Milwaukee. Their streaming under the Bally Sports app is $19.99, but that's the whole channel. You get all of Bally Sports if you really wanted RSN. And when the Brewers were streaming under that, you got the Brewers. Now the Brewers will be under MLB TV because they dropped, Bailey's dropped them, but still, you get the whole thing. You get a whole package. It's not $19.99 for the Sox, and here's another $10 if you want the Bulls and the Blackhawks. That is three different price options. Again, an extra $10 for the Hawks and the Bulls, and both are bad. All three teams are bad. That's the thing that it's this arrogance that, you still want to watch it. You're bad. Price it better. For $29.99 a month, I can get MLB.TV with all the minor league games. And I get that option, obviously. I get it. I live out of market. And I'm not sure MLB will lift blackout restrictions for that, as my fear is the Sox will try to claim Milwaukee as the Hawks did, but I don't think they can because the Brewers are in that area. So I get that fear, but I get it. I live out of market, and if they don't lift out the blackout restrictions in the Chicagoland area for the Sox, you can't use the $29.99 a month option because they'll be blacked out. But still, $29.99 a month for three bad teams who likely will not be good for a couple of years, compared to, if you're a baseball fan, $29.99 a month for every team and minor league games. I'm going to go with MLB TV. Also, ESPN Plus is $11.99 a month, and you get all the NHL games if you live out of the market, that's not being blacked out. You also get college football, a ton of college basketball and hockey, and you can also get some MLB games. That is a well-priced streaming option that I just wish the NBA and MLB would leverage as the NHL did for their out-of-town streaming. You get more bang for your buck. And that's why I have no problem paying the $11.99 for when I didn't get blacked out, even though the Blackhawks were bad, because not only did I get my Blackhawks games, I got so much more. Hey, I loved watching whack college basketball. It was amazing. But the owners are still in the dark ages trying to get the cable grift when those days are over. Accept it. The cable providers figured you out. They figured out that a certain audience only wants RSNs, and that's why they want them on the higher tier packages, because these consumers keep cutting the cords because they get charged more for channels that they don't want. The majority of them. And the owners keep clinging to this hope that Comcast will just be like, oh, you're going to give me a haircut? Sure, I'll put you on the regular package to most of the audience that doesn't want to pay for your channel even in the first place. Sure, they're done. Get creative. For example, in your next national TV package, get ESPN to pay up a little bit more to carry the regional streaming rights with no blackouts. Do what the NHL does. And then actually open your books to the Players Union to show these days of the RSN feeding these bloated salaries are over. But the owners won't do that. They want to squeeze us. That's where I get so frustrated. They're trying to squeeze us. They're trying to get any extra buck, and they mark up the price way too high. If it was $11.99 a month for the Sox and say $19.99 for the three teams, fine. And the only reason why I would entertain it is I'm a hardcore fan of the Sox and the Hawks. But there's only so many discretionary dollars even the hardcore fan has. And if you keep squeezing them and not reinvesting, that's the other thing, not reinvesting, you get the current situation the Sox are in. And it's a vicious cycle. That's why I want to scream to the owners. And that's the other thing. If I was an owner, I would do a Trojan horse thing then. I would buy like the Me TV station and just run a zombie channel and put my games on there and then say to Comcast, I just own a station. I want to be on. At least that way you're on all the tiers if you're able to do that. Buy the Ion local station, zombie it, run, Blue Bloods episodes, reruns all day long, because that's all your cost would be, and then just run your broadcast, get your ad revenue, and get your cable money. Granted, it's indirectly, but still, it's an idea. Think creatively. Think outside the box. Stop thinking, how can we keep this grift going? Because the grift is over. And then it creates these unknown revenue sources, and fans are just getting tired of going to the stadium because even though the park and the food is fine, the product on the field is terrible and not worth the price. And again, we're being squeezed and nothing's getting reinvested. The Sox are willing to discount season tickets. Great. But they should do the same then with their TV offerings, because you are seeing a discount team, not a premium one. All right, well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every aspect of the World Series. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow with a discussion with 670 The Score, Shane Reardon. Going to be a later posting time as well. I'm going to be recording the show with him in the morning. He has some great takes on the plight of this team that I want to get from him. And then feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding the 4 finalists, the also 4 pitchers that gave us hope, and the CHSN streaming option, potential price option. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub, or at Locked On White Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.